Have you ever felt the need to always prove you're right, win every argument, or be the center of attention in every room? In today's world, these behaviors are often encouraged. Social media rewards us for sharing our best moments, seeking likes, and curating a perfect image. But when this desire for validation and attention becomes overwhelming, it can start controlling our lives. At its heart, narcissism is an excessive attachment to the ego. Our sense of I, me, and mine. It can manifest in subtle ways, like constantly comparing ourselves to others, or in more overt behaviors, like seeking admiration at any cost or ignoring others' feelings. Why does this matter? Because unchecked narcissism leads to dissatisfaction, conflict, and isolation. Even those who appear successful and confident on the surface may be struggling internally with anxiety, loneliness, or feelings of inadequacy. Buddhism teaches us that this attachment to the ego, the constant need to define and protect our sense of self, is the root of suffering. The good news is that we can change. By recognizing our tendencies and practicing mindfulness, compassion, and self-awareness, we can start to let go of ego and build healthier, more fulfilling relationships with ourselves and others. In this video on the School of Buddha, we'll explore how you can identify narcissistic traits in yourself, how to manage them, and what to do if you're on the extreme end of the spectrum. But there is a caution here. I am narrating you important information based on my research, but if you find something valuable, do consult a professional before taking any action. Let's begin this journey of self-discovery and transformation. To address narcissism, we first need to understand that it exists on a spectrum. Not everyone who has narcissistic tendencies is a full-blown narcissist. On one end, you might have people who are occasionally self-centered or overly concerned with their image. On the other end, there are individuals with narcissistic personality disorder, a serious mental health condition that requires professional treatment. Let's break this down with some real-world examples. Mild traits. Imagine a friend who always turns the conversation back to themselves. You're sharing a personal story, and they interrupt to talk about their experience. They're not necessarily malicious, but may lack the self-awareness to realize how their behavior affects others. Moderate traits. Now think of a colleague who constantly seeks credit for group work. They might exaggerate their contributions or downplay others' efforts, driven by a need to feel superior. Extreme traits. At the far end of the spectrum, you might encounter someone who manipulates others to maintain control or admiration. For example, a boss who micromanages employees, takes all the praise, and shows no empathy when mistakes happen. But how do you know where you stand? To know this, ask yourself, do I feel hurt or angry when I'm not praised or recognized? Do I prioritize my needs and desires over others? Do I struggle to admit when I'm wrong or apologize sincerely? Recognizing these behaviors isn't about judgment. It's about awareness. For those with mild or moderate traits, self-awareness and intentional practice can bring significant change. But for those with extreme behaviors, therapy or counseling is often necessary. Let's take a closer look at how the modern world amplifies narcissistic tendencies. One is social media validation. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok thrive on likes, comments, and shares. Posting for validation becomes a daily habit, and when we don't receive the attention we expect, we feel inadequate. Another is the hustle culture. In professional settings, the emphasis on self-promotion and constant competition can push people to exaggerate their achievements or ignore teamwork. Next comes the consumer culture. Advertisements tell us we're not enough unless we have the newest phone, the best clothes, or the most luxurious vacations. This drives the ego's need to compare and compete. Recognizing these influences helps us see how much of our behavior is shaped by external pressures. More importantly, it reminds us that we're not alone. Most of us fall into these traps at some point. The key is to break free by shifting our focus inward. Now that we've identified the spectrum of narcissism and how it shows up in everyday life, let's explore how Buddhism views the ego and why letting go of it is the path to peace. In Buddhism, the ego isn't just the part of us that craves attention or validation. It's the false sense of self that keeps us trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction and suffering. The ego constantly seeks to define itself by saying, "This is me, this is mine," or "This is who I am." But is it really? Buddha taught the concept of anatta, the principle of no self. According to this teaching, there is no permanent, unchanging self. Our identities are like rivers, always flowing and changing based on experiences, thoughts, and emotions. The problem arises when we cling to a fixed identity, trying to protect it at all costs. This clinging leads to suffering. For example, when someone criticizes us, the ego feels attacked. Instead of seeing the criticism as feedback, we react defensively, trying to protect our image. When we fail at something, the ego feels shattered because it ties our worth to our achievements. Buddha also taught the Four Noble Truths, which explain that 1. Suffering exists. 2. Suffering arises from attachment and craving, both of which are ego-driven. 3. Letting go of attachment leads to freedom. 4. The Eightfold Path is the way to end suffering. The ego not only affects how we see ourselves, but also how we interact and share relationship with others. Let's take 2 examples. Example 1. Imagine being in an argument where both sides refuse to admit they're wrong. This stalemate happens because the ego prioritizes being right over resolving conflict. Example, in friendships or partnerships, narcissistic tendencies can make us view others as extensions of ourselves, expecting them to always agree with us, praise us, or fulfill our needs. Buddhism teaches that true freedom comes when we dissolve these egoic patterns. By practicing mindfulness, self-awareness, and compassion, we can step outside the cycle of me and mine and see the world more clearly. Stories have the power to convey deep truths in a relatable way. To understand how the ego blinds us and how letting go can bring clarity, let me share a Buddhist parable that beautifully illustrates this. Once, a young monk approached his teacher, deeply troubled. "Master," he said, "I feel restless and hurt whenever people don't respect me or acknowledge my efforts. I try to ignore it, but the feeling just grows stronger. How can I stop this suffering?" The master listened patiently and handed him a mirror. "Look into this mirror. What do you see?" he asked. "My reflection," the monk replied. The master then dipped his hand into a jar of mud and smeared it across the surface of the mirror. "Now, what do you see?" "Nothing," said the monk, frowning. The master smiled. "When your mind is clear, you see the world as it is. But when it is clouded by the mud of ego, you see only a distorted reflection of yourself. You can no longer perceive reality or connect with others because you are too preoccupied with your image. If you wish to be free of this suffering, you must wipe away the mud." This story shows how ego clouds our ability to see the world clearly. Instead of seeing others as they are, we see them as extensions of ourselves, judging their actions based on how they affect our sense of identity or worth. For example, when someone offers constructive criticism, an ego-driven mind sees it as an attack rather than an opportunity for growth. When a friend achieves something, instead of celebrating their success, we might feel envy, as though their accomplishment diminishes our own. By letting go of ego, we stop viewing the world as a mirror that reflects our worth and start experiencing it as it truly is, a place of connection, compassion, and shared humanity. To bring this parable into your life, try this. 1. The next time you feel slighted or unappreciated, pause and ask yourself, am I reacting to reality or to my distorted reflection in the mirror of ego? 2. Imagine the mud being wiped away, clearing your vision. How does this shift your perspective? For instance, if a coworker doesn't acknowledge your contribution, instead of feeling resentful, you might consider that they were simply preoccupied or unaware. This clarity helps you respond with understanding rather than defensiveness. Stories like these help us reflect on the subtle ways ego influences our lives. Now, let's look at how these lessons and practices lead us toward healing and growth. The final step on the journey to letting go of ego. Now that we understand how the ego creates suffering, let's focus on actionable steps to let go of it. It is for those who have mild to moderate traits. These practices are inspired by Buddhist teachings and can help you cultivate greater self-awareness, humility, and compassion. 1. Mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness is the cornerstone of Buddhist practice and a powerful tool for observing the ego. To practice, set aside 10-15 minutes daily to sit quietly. Focus on your breath as it flows in and out. When thoughts arise, especially ego-driven ones like, "Why didn't they praise me?" or "I deserve better," acknowledge them without judgment. Simply let them pass like clouds moving across the sky. This practice creates a gap between your thoughts and your reactions. Over time, you'll start noticing patterns of ego-driven thinking and learn not to act on them impulsively. For example, Imagine scrolling through social media and feeling envy when you see someone's success. Mindfulness allows you to pause, acknowledge the feeling, and let it go, instead of spiraling into negative comparisons. 2. Loving kindness practice, or metta. One of the best antidotes to ego is cultivating love and compassion for yourself and others. Sit in a quiet place and repeat phrases like, "May I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be free from suffering." Once you feel these sentiments for yourself, extend them to others, including those you find difficult. This practice shifts the focus from me to we. It softens the ego by reminding you of our shared humanity. 3. Question your thoughts. Buddhism encourages self-inquiry to challenge the ego's assumptions. The next time you feel the need to prove yourself or seek validation, ask, "Why am I reacting this way? What am I trying to protect? Will this matter a year from now?" These questions disrupt automatic ego-driven responses and help you respond from a place of clarity and wisdom. Suppose a coworker criticizes your idea during a meeting. Instead of reacting defensively, you pause and reflect. You realize your reaction stems from a fear of looking incompetent, not the actual critique. 4. Acts of service. Serving others is a direct way to transcend the ego. Look for opportunities to help without expecting anything in return. It could be as simple as listening to a friend, volunteering, or sharing your skills. This service shifts your focus outward, reminding you that life isn't just about your needs and desires. For example, a busy executive who volunteers at a local shelter might find that connecting with others' struggles reduces their own sense of self-importance. 5. Practice gratitude. Gratitude helps us appreciate what we have instead of constantly seeking more to satisfy the ego. You can try this. At the end of each day, write down 3 things you're grateful for. Reflect on how these blessings came to you, often through the efforts of others. Gratitude weakens the ego's constant craving for more and fosters contentment. For example, instead of feeling envious of a friend's promotion, you might feel grateful for your own opportunities and experiences. Letting go of ego isn't a one-time effort, it's a lifelong practice. There will be days when you succeed and days when you don't. Be patient with yourself. Every small step you take brings you closer to inner peace. While these practices are effective for those with mild to moderate narcissistic tendencies, individuals at the extreme end of the spectrum may need additional support. If you want a detailed video on these techniques, I have already covered it in our special podcast series. Please check the description to go to those videos directly. Let's explore what can be done for those dealing with more entrenched narcissistic behaviors. When narcissistic traits become extreme, they can significantly impact relationships, careers, and personal well-being. People with extreme narcissistic behaviors often struggle to see beyond their own needs, leading to manipulation, lack of empathy, and an inflated sense of self-importance. This level of narcissism, often referred to as narcissistic personality disorder, requires a more structured approach. 1. Recognizing the need for professional help. Extreme narcissistic behaviors are deeply ingrained and often tied to underlying psychological issues such as childhood trauma, insecurity, or unresolved emotional pain. While Buddhist practices are powerful tools for self-awareness and transformation, they may not be enough on their own for individuals with narcissistic personality disorder. There can be 2 suggestions here. Therapy is a primary approach. Cognitive behavioral therapy or psychodynamic therapy can help individuals recognize their patterns, understand their roots, and develop healthier coping mechanisms. Combining therapy with mindfulness. Buddhist practices such as mindfulness and compassion meditation can complement therapy by helping individuals stay present and manage emotional triggers. For example, a person with narcissistic personality disorder might struggle with intense anger when criticized. Therapy can help them explore the origin of this reaction, while mindfulness teaches them to pause and respond thoughtfully instead of lashing out. 2. Practicing radical self-honesty. Extreme narcissism often involves self-deception, avoiding uncomfortable truths about oneself. Radical self-honesty, a principle found in both Buddhism and therapy, is crucial for change. What to do? Encourage individuals to journal or reflect on their actions honestly. Why did I react the way I did? Was I fair to others in this situation? Am I acting out of fear or insecurity? Confronting uncomfortable truths can break the cycle of denial and pave the way for growth. 3. Building empathy through meditation. One of the hallmarks of extreme narcissism is a lack of empathy. Following Buddhist techniques can help individuals cultivate this essential quality. Compassion meditation. Similar to loving kindness practice, this meditation involves imagining the suffering of others and wishing them peace and happiness. For example, a person might reflect on a colleague they've hurt in the past, imagining how their words or actions affected them. This exercise can soften the ego and foster genuine remorse. 4. The role of accountability. For those with extreme behaviors, having trusted individuals to hold them accountable can be transformative. Work with a therapist, mentor, or support group to identify and address harmful patterns. It helps because external accountability provides structure and ensures consistent progress, especially when ego-driven denial is strong. For example, a leader known for dismissing team input might regularly check in with a coach to evaluate how well they're listening and incorporating feedback. 5. The long path to change. It's essential to emphasize that change takes time and effort. Letting go of deeply rooted narcissistic tendencies is a gradual process that requires patience, persistence, and compassion for oneself and others. Here is an inspiring analogy. Think of ego as a mountain. Chipping away at it may feel slow, but each small act of honesty, kindness, and reflection moves you closer to the summit of self-awareness and liberation. Even at extreme levels, change is possible with the right support and determination. The Buddha's teachings remind us that no one is beyond redemption. Transformation begins with the courage to take the first step, however small it may seem. Now that we've explored approaches for both mild and extreme narcissistic tendencies, let's tie everything together and discuss the journey of healing and growth, where ego dissolves and true peace begins. Letting go of ego isn't just about reducing narcissistic tendencies. It's about discovering a deeper, more authentic version of yourself. When you release the need for constant validation, control, or superiority, you create space for genuine connection, peace, and inner strength. This process is the essence of healing and growth. 1. Embracing self-awareness. The first step on this path is self-awareness, as the Buddha taught. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. By observing your thoughts, emotions, and actions, you can uncover the patterns that drive your ego. To practice this, dedicate time each day to reflect on your interactions. Ask yourself, was I seeking validation or control in this situation? Did I respond with compassion or defensiveness? These questions help you catch ego-driven behaviors before they take root. Let's take a modern example. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. Instead of reacting with anger, pause and reflect. Am I angry because I feel disrespected? Does their action really define my worth? This simple pause breaks the cycle of ego-driven reactivity. 2. Cultivating humility. Humility isn't about thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less. When you shift your focus from self-centered concerns to the needs and experiences of others, you naturally weaken the ego's grip. To practice humility, acknowledge your mistakes and apologize sincerely when needed. Celebrate others' successes without comparing them to your own. Volunteer or engage in acts of service to connect with a larger community. For example, if a colleague receives praise for their work, instead of feeling overshadowed, take a moment to genuinely congratulate them. This simple act nurtures humility and strengthens relationships. The role of gratitude. Gratitude is a powerful antidote to ego because it shifts your focus from what you lack to what you have. To practice, start a gratitude journal. Each day, write down 3 things you're thankful for. Reflect on how these blessings connect you to others and the world around you. For example, if you feel underappreciated at work, focus on the opportunities you've been given, the skills you've developed, or the support from colleagues. Gratitude helps you see beyond your immediate frustrations. 4. Building lasting connections. Ego often isolates us, making relationships transactional or one-sided. True healing comes when we foster genuine connections based on empathy, respect, and mutual growth. To practice connection, listen actively during conversations without planning your response. Show interest in others' stories and emotions without steering the conversation back to yourself. Be present in your relationships, focusing on giving rather than receiving. For example, instead of interrupting a friend to share your own experience, let them finish their story. This small gesture builds trust and deepens your bond. 5. Patience with the process. Letting go of ego is a lifelong journey, not a quick fix. Some days you'll feel progress, while on others, old habits might resurface. The key is to approach this journey with patience and kindness toward yourself. Here is an inspiring analogy. Imagine a sculptor chipping away at a block of marble. Each small strike reveals a bit more of the beautiful statue hidden within. Similarly, every mindful choice you make brings you closer to your authentic self. You can also try encouraging words, the Buddha said. No matter how hard the past, you can always begin again. Each day offers a new opportunity to practice and grow. 6. The reward, freedom from ego. When you let go of ego, you gain freedom. The freedom to be at peace with yourself, to connect deeply with others, and to live a life of meaning and purpose. This freedom isn't about abandoning your individuality. It's about uncovering your true nature, free from the distortions of ego. The result, you feel less affected by criticism or praise. You cultivate authentic relationships. You experience a sense of contentment that isn't tied to external circumstances. The journey to letting go of ego is one of courage, self-discovery, and growth. It's about stepping beyond the need for validation or control and embracing a life of authenticity and connection. When you release the ego's grip, you discover a peace that comes not from external achievements, but from within. A peace rooted in compassion, humility, and gratitude. As the Buddha reminds us, you, yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. Start this journey with love for yourself, and you'll naturally extend it to others. Thank you for joining us today at the School of Buddha. If this video resonated with you, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue spreading the wisdom of Buddhism to more people. We'd also love to hear from you. What part of today's discussion spoke to you the most? Is there a practice you're eager to try or a story you'd like to share? Let us know in the comments below. Your insights could inspire someone else on their journey. Until next time, may you find clarity, peace, and freedom in every step of your path. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the next video.